Russia's rear area has been its single greatest military advantage in this war. For 4 years, it launched missiles and drones from occupied territory, striking Ukrainian cities, depots and command posts, while remaining largely beyond Ukraine's reach. That asymmetry has cost Ukraine enormously. That asymmetry is about to end. According to a February 2nd report by the War Zone, the United States has successfully completed a live-fire test of a new cruise missile specifically engineered to solve Ukraine's long-range strike problem. It's called the Rusty Dagger. It just passed its most critical milestone, and Russia is powerless to stop what comes next.
By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what this weapon can do, why it changes the math of this entire conflict, and why Putin has every reason to be worried. But first, there's a number you need to hear. Remember it. It becomes critical in about 4 minutes. That number is 3,350. What just happened changes everything for Ukraine's strike capability. On January 30th, the US Air Force officially announced a successful live-fire test of a new extended-range attack munition conducted at the Eglin Test and Training Range in Florida. The Air Force stated the test occurred on January 21st, 2025, less than 16 months after the initial development contract was awarded. In the world of defense procurement, that timeline is nearly unprecedented.
The photos released publicly are unambiguous. Defense Express and the War Zone both confirm the weapon tested is the Rusty Dagger, developed by Zone 5 Technologies. The images show the missile in a near-vertical terminal dive onto a stationary target. Then the warhead detonates. The test was, by every account, a clean success. Stat bomb. The Rusty Dagger carries a 227-kilogram warhead, roughly 500 pounds. For context, that's equivalent to the guided bombs Russia has been dropping on Ukrainian cities for the last 2 years. The difference? Ukraine is about to be the one dropping them. Brigadier General Robert Lyons III, America's portfolio acquisition executive for weapons, made no attempt to hide his satisfaction. Moving from a contract to a live-fire demonstration in under 2 years, he said, proves we can deliver lethal, cost-effective capability at the speed of relevance.
Speed of relevance. That phrase matters because Ukraine doesn't need this weapon in 5 years. Ukraine needs it now. But here's where it gets more complicated and more interesting. There's a date discrepancy that could change the entire timeline. The Air Force says the test happened January 21st, 2025. But Defense Express argues that date is likely a typo, pointing out that the ERAM program's request for proposals didn't even begin until January 31st, 2024, with the contract signed in October. If Defense Express is right, the actual test happened more recently, which means the Rusty Dagger could be even closer to deployment than the official timeline suggests. Either way, one fact is not in dispute. The test happened, it succeeded, and Ukraine is next in line. Here's the number I told you to remember, 3,350. That's not the range of the Rusty Dagger, that's not the warhead weight. That is the total number of these cruise missiles already on order for Ukraine, funded entirely by European NATO partners, signed and sealed in a deal completed August 28th, as first reported by Janes. The total cost of that order, $825 million. Do the math, that's approximately $246,000 per missile. Scale comparison, a Russian caliber cruise missile costs an estimated $1 million to $6.5 million per unit, depending on variant. Ukraine is about to field a weapon that performs comparably at a fraction of the cost. That's not just a military advantage, that's an economic one.
Now pay attention to this detail because most coverage is missing it entirely. The Rusty Dagger isn't even the only missile in this program. A company called Co-Aspire is simultaneously developing a second ERAM, the Rapidly Adaptable Affordable Cruise Missile, or RAACM. It's 3D printed. It's designed to fit any aircraft capable of carrying a GBU-38 bomb, which includes Soviet-era airframes that Ukraine already operates. Long-range flight tests have been completed. Live-fire testing status remains undisclosed. 2 missiles, 1 program, thousands on order, and the funding came from Europe, not Washington. From Moscow's viewpoint, this is the scenario the Kremlin spent years trying to prevent. NATO coordination, producing a custom-built, cost-effective weapons system, purpose-built to strip Russia of one of its last remaining strategic advantages. The Defense Security Cooperation Agency said it plainly when the deal was announced in August. The ERAM is an example of working together with our NATO allies to develop a capable and scalable system capable of being delivered on a fast timeline. Scalable. That word is doing a lot of work there. Ukraine buys 3,350. They work. Ukraine buys 10,000 more. The entire calculus of the war shifts. This brings us to what the Rusty Dagger actually does on the battlefield and why Russian commanders should be losing sleep right now. Here's what most analysts are underplaying. The Rusty Dagger doesn't just give Ukraine more range. It gives Ukraine a category of strike capability it has never had before, the ability to hit deep, hit hard, and hit precisely at a cost that's actually sustainable.
Let's run the specifications. According to Defence Express and confirmed by the Warzone, range up to 400 kilometres, slightly exceeding the ATAC-KMS missiles. The US previously supplied warhead 227 kilograms, blast fragmentation with reported penetration capability, speed Mach 0.6, accuracy within 10 meters of target, roughly 32 feet. That accuracy figure deserves a moment. 10 meters. That's not hits the general area, that's through a specific window of a specific building if the targeting data is solid. But the specification that matters most for survivability, terrain-hugging navigation, the Rusty Dagger flies autonomously, using the ground itself as cover, staying low enough that Russian radar systems have minimal detection window before the missile is already inside the kill radius. And unlike older missile systems, its engine ignites without pyrotechnics, meaning reduced heat signature at launch, making early detection even harder. Pattern interrupt.
Think about what this means for Russian air defense doctrine. Russia's layered A2/AD systems are optimized for higher altitude threats. They're designed to track, intercept, and destroy. But a low-flying, terrain-masking cruise missile with a suppressed heat signature and autonomous navigation is a fundamentally different problem. It's not that Russia's air defenses are useless, it's that they're optimized for the wrong threat profile.
By the way, if this kind of in-depth weapons analysis is what you're here for, subscribe to War News. We track these developments so you don't have to connect the dots yourself. Now, the target list. The Warzone assessed that the Rusty Dagger's combination of range and warhead makes it particularly effective against Russian logistics hubs, ammunition depots, command and control nodes, and air defense installations. If the penetration capability rumors are accurate and the live fire imagery suggests they may be, it becomes a credible threat against hardened airfield infrastructure, hangars, fuel storage, maintenance facilities, housing the Su-34s and Kar-52s that have been tormenting Ukrainian ground forces.
That last point is significant. Russia's glide bomb campaign, which has been devastating for Ukrainian frontline positions, depends on those airframes surviving. If Ukrainian Rusty Daggers start threatening the airfields those planes operate from, the entire air campaign calculus shifts. So what does this mean for Putin going forward? Here's the honest complication nobody wants to sit with. The Wall Street Journal reported in August 2025 that the Pentagon had quietly implemented a review mechanism, essentially a US veto, over Ukrainian use of American-supplied long-range weapons inside Russian territory.
But here's the critical distinction, and this is the part that matters most right now. Those ATAC-KMS restrictions apparently do not apply to occupied Ukrainian territory, which means Ukraine can at minimum use Rusty Daggers against Russian positions in Zaporizhia, Kherson, Donetsk and Luhansk oblasts, the exact areas where Russian logistics chains, command posts and rear area supply nodes currently operate with relative impunity. Every logistics hub destroyed is fewer shells reaching the front. Every command post taken out is days of coordination lost. Every ammunition depot hit is weeks of offensive capacity degraded. New Geopolitics Research Center made an argument worth considering. Ukraine gaining large-scale cruise missile capability doesn't just affect the battlefield, it affects the negotiating table.
Ukraine's ability to conduct large-scale missile strikes independently, the outlet noted, will demonstrate that President Zelensky holds trump cards that matter in any settlement framework. That's a diplomatic calculus Putin hasn't had to seriously contend with yet. Here's what this all means. Russia's rear area, the logistical backbone of a 4-year invasion, is about to become a kill zone. The Rusty Dagger is accurate, affordable, survivable, and already on order in quantities large enough to sustain a prolonged strike campaign. The live fire test wasn't a milestone to celebrate. It was a warning. In the coming weeks, watch for confirmation of actual delivery timelines. If the US Air Force's January 21st date is accurate, deployment could come faster than anyone expects.
If Defence Express is right about the typo, add a few months Either way, 2026 is the year this weapon likely arrives in Ukrainian hands. And when it does, the geographic advantage Russia has held for 4 years disappears overnight. One more thing worth watching, Sweden. There's a word circulating in NATO defense circles right now that's making Russian planners deeply uncomfortable. That word is meteor. What it means for this conflict and why Russia specifically fears it, that's what we cover next. Subscribe to War News because this conflict moves fast and the weapons shaping it move even faster.